The sprawling mansion stood in silence that evening, its long corridors dimly lit with golden lamps. Richard Hayes, the well-known millionaire and CEO of a real estate empire, had just returned from a sudden business trip abroad. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back early, not even his personal assistant, not the staff, not even his 8-year-old twins, Lily and Lucas. After weeks of endless meetings and handshakes, he craved something real, something warm, something that reminded him of family. He quietly parked his car at the side entrance, hoping to surprise the children. But as soon as he stepped inside, Richard froze. From the playroom, he heard soft laughter. It wasn't the usual sound of cartoons or video games. No, it was different. Genuine. Full of life. Curious, he walked slowly toward the sound. The closer he got, the more he realized there was a voice among the giggles. A woman's voice. It wasn't the nanny he had hired years ago. It was deeper, soothing, rich with an accent he couldn't quite place. Richard stood by the doorway and peered inside. His twins sat cross-legged on the carpet, wide-eyed, their little hands moving in the air as if practicing something. Sitting across from them was Maria, the maid who had joined their staff not long ago. She was a tall black woman, always polite but reserved, someone Richard never paid much attention to. Yet here she was, not cleaning or serving, but teaching his children. Good, good. Maria clapped her hands gently. Now again, repeat after me, Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Lily and Lucas shouted, stumbling over the syllables but smiling with delight. And what does it mean? Maria asked, her eyes twinkling. It means, Lucas hesitated, glancing at his sister. It means, I am because we are. Lily answered proudly, her face glowing. Maria grinned, clapping for them both. Yes, very good. Ubuntu means we are all connected. We care for each other, share with each other, and love one another. That is how we grow strong. Not alone, but together. Richard felt something stir in his chest. He had expected to find his children wasting time with toys or arguing as usual. Instead, he found them being taught something deep, something he himself had never thought to explain. But his pride quickly mixed with unease. Why was she teaching them? Who gave her permission to talk about things like this? She was just the maid. Before he could think further, Lucas spotted him. Daddy! The boy shouted, leaping to his feet and running over. Lily followed, hugging his legs tightly. Daddy, you're back, she said with glee. Richard smiled and hugged them both, but his eyes flickered to Maria, who now stood respectfully, her hands clasped in front of her apron. I came back early, Richard said. Wanted to surprise you too. Then, with a tighter tone, he added, Maria, can I have a word? Maria nodded, lowering her gaze. She followed him into the hallway, where his voice hardened. What exactly were you doing in there? Teaching my kids philosophy. Maria didn't flinch. Her eyes lifted, calm but steady. I wasn't trying to overstep, sir. The children were asking questions about kindness, about why people are sometimes mean. I wanted them to understand something I was taught as a child, that we are all connected, no matter our differences. Richard folded his arms. That's not your job. Your job is to take care of the house. I understand, Maria said softly. But sometimes, children need more than a clean room and a meal. They need stories. They need lessons that stay in their hearts. Her words disarmed him, though he didn't show it. Well, he muttered, I'll speak with them myself. That night, as Richard tucked his twins into bed, he asked what they had learned. Daddy, Maria told us about when she was a little girl, Lily said. She said they didn't have many toys, but they had each other, and they shared everything. She said happiness isn't money, it's people. Richard felt a pang. His empire had been built on long nights and sacrifices, but somewhere in the process, he had lost sight of moments like these. Over the next few days, Richard couldn't ignore what he saw. Whenever he came home from meetings, he found his twins with Maria, painting, singing, even gardening in the backyard. She taught them African songs, told them folktales under the stars, and encouraged them to respect not only people, but also nature. One evening, he overheard Lily asking, Maria, why do you always say thank you to the plants? Maria chuckled, because they give us air to breathe, food to eat, beauty to see. If we don't respect them, we forget how much they give. Richard had to turn away before they saw the tears welling in his eyes. He had built skyscrapers, bought expensive cars, hosted charity galas, but here was a maid teaching his children the kind of wisdom money couldn't buy. But not everyone in the house approved. Mrs. Parker, the longtime head housekeeper, whispered to Richard one morning, "Sir, with all due respect, the maid is overstepping. She treats the children like her own. It doesn't look proper." Richard frowned, torn. He had grown up in a world where roles were strict and boundaries were clear. Yet, when he looked at his children's happiness, their new confidence, their laughter, he knew Maria was doing something right. One Saturday, Richard decided to test things. He canceled his meetings and spent the whole day at home, quietly watching. The twins ran into the garden with Maria, who showed them how to plant small seeds. "Why bury them?" Lucas asked. "Because," Maria said, placing her hands over his gently, "sometimes we must let things go into the dark before they can grow into something beautiful." Richard froze. Those words struck him like lightning. He thought of his late wife, the children's mother, whom they had lost years ago. He had buried his grief in work, never showing them how much he still hurt. But maybe he needed to let that pain exist, so something new, healing, closeness, could grow. As evening fell, the children pulled him into the garden. "Daddy, come plant one too," they begged. He knelt beside them awkwardly, dirt on his hands, a feeling he hadn't allowed in years. Maria guided him gently. "Just place the seed, cover it softly, and trust." For the first time in a long while, Richard smiled without forcing it. Days turned into weeks, and his bond with his twins grew stronger. He listened more, played more, even laughed more. And every time he looked at Maria, he saw not just a maid, but a teacher, a guide, almost like family. One night, after tucking the children in, Richard found Maria in the kitchen washing dishes. He cleared his throat. "Maria," he began, "I owe you an apology. When I first saw you teaching my children, I thought you were crossing a line. But now, I see you were giving them something I couldn't." Maria turned, surprised, her hands still wet. "Sir, you give them everything." Richard shook his head. "Not everything. I gave them comfort, but not wisdom. Security, but not always love. You gave them heart." Maria's eyes softened, and for a moment, silence filled the room. Richard continued, his voice lower. "If you're willing, I'd like you to stay, not just as a maid, but as part of our family. My children need you, and maybe, so do I." Maria blinked back tears, her strong composure faltering. "Sir, I'd be honored." From that day forward, the mansion no longer felt so empty. The halls echoed with laughter, songs, and lessons that went far beyond schoolbooks. The twins grew not only smarter but kinder, braver, more compassionate. And Richard, he finally learned the greatest lesson of all, that wealth wasn't measured by the size of his empire, but by the love and wisdom that filled his home. Years later, when Lily and Lucas stood tall at their graduations, they credited not just their father's support, but also Maria's teachings. She had shown them that strength came from unity, respect, and compassion. And Richard, standing proudly in the audience, knew that the day he froze in the doorway, watching the black maid teach his children, was the day his family truly began to heal.